She was 5 days away from her wedding, a rising star at Yale. But on September 13, 2009, Annie Le's body was found, stuffed upside down in a basement wall. Everyone agreed Annie was exceptional, with a smile that could light up a room. Annie Le was born in San Jose, California in 1985 and grew up in a large, tight-knit Vietnamese-American family. She was the valedictorian of her graduating high school class and voted most likely to be the next Einstein by her classmates. She received $160,000 in scholarships and got her undergraduate degree in cell developmental biology from the University of Rochester in upstate New York. While attending the public university, she met and fell in love with Jonathan Wadowski, according to the university's tribute. Le and her fiancé Jonathan shared a deep bond, overcoming the challenges of a long-distance relationship to excitedly plan their marriage. They bonded over activities like watching baseball games via Skype, and Jonathan showed his profound love for Annie by wearing his wedding band even after her tragic loss. They were to be married on September 13, 2009. Tragically, she would never see that date. In September 2007, Liu was accepted into a graduate program at Yale that would have led to her earning a doctorate in pharmacology. Her research had applications in the treatment of diabetes and certain forms of cancer. She had previously written an article for Yale Medical School's B magazine titled Crime and Safety in New Haven, published in February 2009. On the morning of September 8th, Liu left her apartment and took Yale Transit to the Sterling Hall of Medicine on the Yale campus. Around 10 a.m., surveillance captured her entering the Amistad Street building where her research laboratory was located. The security footage confirmed she never left that building that day. That same day at around 12:56 p.m., a fire alarm was pulled. The alarm was set off by an autoclave used to sterilize lab equipment, and in the security footage, you can see employees evacuating the building. Annie was not seen in between them. When investigators reviewed security tapes from that night, a source said they began to focus on Clark, who was seen looking distraught and holding his head in his hands. At approximately 9 p.m. that night, when Annie had still not returned home, one of her 5 housemates called police to report her missing. Her pocketbook and cell phone were later found at the lab. Police closed the whole building for investigation. Police also searched through refuse at the Hartford dump, where Yale's garbage is incinerated, looking for clues as to Lee's whereabouts. The FBI, the New Haven Police Department, and the Connecticut State Police were all involved in the search. Police scanned blueprints of the lab and brought in blood-sniffing dogs, paying particular attention to the building's basement. Yale had also offered a $10,000 reward for information leading to Lee's whereabouts. Initially, investigators considered the possibility that Annie Liu might have simply disappeared because of wedding nerves. However, Vanessa Flores, a close friend and former roommate of Lee's, said everything was good. There was nothing that would make us believe that she was having second thoughts or anything like that. She's a very conscientious person. This thing has been planned for more than a year, and she was just very excited about it. Investigators even said Annie's fiancé was not a suspect because he had a strong alibi and was publicly grieving, attending vigils and cooperating fully, and there was no physical or circumstantial evidence linking him to the crime scene or Annie's lab building. On Sept 12, investigators find bloody clothing above a ceiling tile in same lab. On September 13th, police noticed a smell similar to that of a decomposing body and brought in cadaver dogs. At 5 p.m., when Annie Liu should have been walking down the aisle at her wedding, her decomposing body was found stuffed upside down in a wall. The killer was so desperate to hide his heinous handiwork that he broke the bones and mangled the body of a strangled Annie to fit her body through a wall opening the size of a computer screen, which was in a wall chase in G22 Annie's lab. An officer said, "He just crushed her in there. She was like mush. She was so smashed up you couldn't recognize her. Reports say the cause of death was strangulation." It was also revealed that while Le was alive, her jaw and collarbone were broken, and she sustained bruises to the back of her head. Her bra was pushed up and her panties pulled down. They also disclosed semen was found on Liu's panty liner, providing evidence of rape. The entrance and the rooms inside the building require Yale identification cards to be opened and accessed. The basement where Liu's body was found houses animals that are used for experiments and research. Due to the high security measures in the building, authorities and Yale officials maintained that it would be extremely difficult for someone without a Yale ID card to enter the basement lab, leading them to focus their investigation on Yale employees and students. Even before Annie Lou's body had been found, police began zeroing in on Ray Clark, a lab technician who worked at the lab she used in a custodial function. Clark, who did not attend Yale but worked there, was known to be hard on students who left the lab dirty, making more work for him. Clark had emailed Lou to complain about her leaving dirty mice cages behind after one of her studies. A former high school girlfriend of the lab technician, who has been charged, said that Clark was extremely controlling, telling her what clothes she could wear, where she could go, and what friends she could have. Del Rocco said Wednesday that Clark would get very angry and physical with her, to the point where she was frightened. She declined to elaborate on any physical confrontations. Law enforcement official told the Hartford Courant that Raymond tried to hide blood-spattered equipment and cleaned up areas Annie Lou was in before she vanished September 8th. Annie's blood was found on Raymond's boots in his locker. Investigators also found gloves and socks with blood stains on them hidden in the ceiling of G13, Annie's lab. Ray Clark was so desperate to hide his heinous handiwork that he allegedly broke the bones and mangled the body of a strangled Annie to fit her body through a wall opening the size of a computer screen, which was a wall chase in G22, Annie's lab. A DNA sample matching the semen found on Annie's panty liner with Raymond Clark's DNA found on the wall of the lab was the final piece of the puzzle that brought about his arrest on September 17th. Authorities would not comment on a possible motive other than citing workplace violence. While Clark lacked a personal relationship with Lee, criminologists posit potential motives rooted in an obsession or inferiority complex towards her intelligence and success. Others suggest racial and gender biases may have fueled hatred that led to violence after some perceived rejection. Police charged Clark, 24, with murder on Thursday, arresting him at a motel a day after taking hair, fingernail, and saliva samples from him to compare with the evidence from the crime scene. The bond was set at $3 million for Clark. He did not enter a plea. His hearing was delayed until January 26, 2010, since not all of the materials in the case had been made available to the lawyers. In March 2011, Clark entered a guilty plea in Lou's murder in exchange for a 44-year prison term. On an additional charge of an attempted sexual assault of Lee, he entered an Alford plea, a guilty plea that does not admit the facts, but concedes the sufficiency of the evidence against him. Clark officially entered the plea on March 17th, and he was formally sentenced to 44 years imprisonment on June 3rd. However, under a 2023 law expanding parole eligibility for youthful offenders, he will become eligible for parole after serving 60% of the sentence, or 26 years. Clark read his statement saying the following: "I take full responsibility for my actions. I alone am responsible for the death of Annie Lou and causing tremendous pain to all who loved and cared about Annie. I have always tried to do the right thing and stay out of trouble, but I failed. I took a life and continued to lie about it, while Annie's friends, family, and fiancé sat and waited. I really never wanted to harm anyone or cause emotional pain to anyone. All I wanted was to be a good son, a good brother, and a good fiancé. But again, I failed. I blame only myself, and there are no excuses for what I have done. Annie was and will always be a wonderful person, by far a better person than I will ever be in my life. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I ruined lives, and I'm sorry for taking Annie's life." In 2011, the estate of Annie Lee filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Yale University in New Haven Superior Court. The lawsuit alleged that Yale was negligent in its hiring and supervision of Raymond Clark, the lab technician who murdered Lee. It also claimed that Yale had failed to adequately protect women on campus and fostered an atmosphere of tolerance of sexual harassment and sexual assaults that emboldened Clark. In November 2016, Yale settled the wrongful death lawsuit for $3 million. Annie's death left her family in a state of shock, with her fiancé Jonathan experiencing profound grief. Instead of a wedding, Jonathan had to face the devastating reality of walking down the aisle to Annie's casket. Her younger cousins, initially joyful about the wedding, struggled to cope with the heartbreaking reality of her loss. Thousands of students, faculty, and staff gathered for a candlelight vigil on Cross Campus to mourn Le. Memorials were held in California and Huntington, New York, and the funeral was broadcast live on the internet. Annie's family and friends gathered on September 26, 2009, in California's Sierra, near where Annie grew up. Annie's mother, Vivian Van Lee, tearfully talked about the lullabies she would sing to her daughter when she was small, then read a poem she had written in Vietnamese that was translated by Annie's brother, Chris Lee. "Farewell, my child, the most wonderful gift that God sent to me," Annie's mother said. She continued to describe her daughter's death as a knife searing through my soul. Annie Lee was just 24. A brilliant student, daughter, and fiancée, and a vibrant young scientist, her life cut short by someone she likely passed in the hallways every day. Her case is a chilling reminder that even in the safest places, darkness can hide in plain sight. What happened to Annie left a scar not just on Yale, but on everyone who followed her story. Though justice was served, the loss remains. If this story moved you, consider subscribing for more real-life cases that deserve to be remembered. And tell me in the comments, what do you think of this case?